Hi, welcome. Karis to you. Do you have something to take notes? This is 6 o'clock at Monday, the 1st of June, 2026. And I just wrote a couple of words. Are you running away? I was editing one of the previous videos just a little while ago, and it was on contention. And something in it made me think I should do a message on Are You Running Away? So here I am, just a few minutes later. Let's talk about that. In the Bible, there are a few cases of runaways. Jonah was a runaway. God told him to go to Nineveh, I believe it was, and he decided, well, he's going to go the opposite way. Ends up getting on a boat and that boat being capsized and getting swallowed by a great fish, and that fish taking him and spewing him up on the beach of Nineveh, where God told him to go. I'm not going to bother going and looking for the story right now, but he's not the only runaway in the Bible. Christ told a story of the prodigal son, where a rich man had two sons, and one son said, "Give him my inheritance," and uh, the father gave it to him, and he went off and he blew it. He just wasted it, spent it on luxurious living for a temporary amount of time, and ended up feeding pigs and eating pig food, basically. And he decided that he would go back to his father and work for his father as a servant because he'd already taken his inheritance. He didn't have the right to become a son again. And he went back to his father, and when his father saw him, he ran to him and he told his servants to um, give him good clothes and put rings on his fingers. And that was the return of the prodigal son. So there are other stories of runaways. David was a runaway at a time, and certain prophets certainly ran from what God called them to do, other than Jonah, because I believe one of the major prophets did as well. I can't recall. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, one of those. And not one of the minor prophets like Hosea or Micah or the like. I don't think anyway. But runaways are not uncommon. After all, if we're considering a runaway as far as God goes, running away from your call, running away from your ministry, running away from life as a Christian, whatever it might be that you're running away from, you're not the only runaway if you're running away now, that is. If you're not running away, well, you might get something useful from whatever I come up with anyway. I don't know what I'm going to come up with here. So, if you are running from God, the point of those biblical stories, Jonah was cast onto the beach at Nineveh. God had his way in the end. The prodigal son came back to the father. That's a story of, it's a parable for turning away from God and coming back to God, and also how uh, the non-Jewish will be welcomed, but still, it's more of a turn away than return. And the same with whichever prophet that was, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, or whichever. Um, one of might have been uh, one of those, I think, by memory anyway. I don't quote me on this. Had an issue and ran away for a while as well. But in every circumstance, and there's probably more, in every circumstance, you run away and you end up running straight back to God, but not, oh, I want to turn back to God and run to God. But you're running away, and suddenly, bang, God hits you in the face. It's like, hang on, I was running away from you, and I've just run into you. How can you run away from God if God is everywhere? You can't. But we do for a while. You see, we have free will. And sooner or later, God will have his way. You see, free will also exists with a predestiny. If God has called you and knows that you will eventually reach whatever it is that you're called to, if you run away temporarily, and I've done it recently, um, and God drags you back. I wasn't running from God because I lost belief. I'm not running from someone I don't believe in anymore. Yet I came to a point where I questioned my own beliefs under the consideration that everything is possible. Anything can be true, including God. And if God can be true, then the sensible thing is to believe in God. After all, let's look at this first. We exist. Non-life cannot become life by itself. Can't just suddenly a rock turn into something living. Doesn't happen. And therefore, what caused it? Science doesn't know. They admit they don't know. God? Well, that's a viable answer, more viable than anything science has come up with. Science has come up with, oh, we were, one possible answer they came up with was, we have popped out of another universe into our own universe, a multiverse scenario. Well, there's no evidence of multiverses. So they're saying, look, we're going to come up with an idea because we have no evidence, we have no rational concept. So, not only how does life come from non-life? Can't happen. But how does something, the universe, come from nothing? And they explain it away with a multiverse, which is really, if you look at it, that's more ridiculous than believing in God. So, God can make more sense than science. We just don't have the evidence of God right there before us. But of course, as we know, um, Ephesians 2:8, for example, says, for you are saved by grace through faith, and that is not of yourselves, it is the gift of God. Through faith, not through fact, not through evidence, not through um, anything provable faith. So you believe first, and when you believe, then evidence comes. But because we're talking about the spiritual world with God, evidence comes spiritually. You gain a conviction that God actually is there. You things might happen to reconfirm this, etc. as well. You can't run away from God. I, um, I couldn't run away from God. Jonah couldn't run away from God. The prodigal son couldn't run away from God because it was a story about God rather than, in the story, it's a parable. The Father is God. Um, and if you're trying to run away, you won't get far. Sure, run away for a while. It's like a river, and your life is, let's say your life is that river, and it's flowing in one direction, and God has it flowing in one direction. You can jump in that river and swim in the opposite direction, but swimming against the current, sooner or later you're going to get tired, and the current's just going to take you back to where God wants you anyway. Swimming against the flow, running away from God, is possible. You do have free will, so you can do it. But predestination exists as well. You won't be able to do it for long. Maybe you can do it for a few years, a few decades, but you won't be able to do it forever. Sooner or later, if you're called, sooner or later, God is going to hammer it home in a sense and reveal himself not in claps of thunder or lightning shows in the sky or anything like that, but things in life will bring you to a point where you reassess and you have a desire to take hold of God again. And you take the chance to take hold of God again. And then God reveals himself more. You can't run away from God. Are you running away? You might not be running away from belief in God. You might merely be a Christian running away from your call. You're called to be a teacher, and you have all these teachings inside you, etc., that are yearning to get out. But you enjoy your job in the world because it's a good job, let's say, for example. You're a journalist for a newspaper and you like your name in the newspaper and people know you. Maybe you're a restaurant critic or something like that, and people give you free meals because you're a restaurant critic or something. So you just want to write stories about restaurants, but God wants you to teach, write stories about Him. Well, even if you're going to church and you're in God, you're still running. You're running from your call, not running from God, running from your call. He'll still draw you lovingly to where you are supposed to be. There is the rare case where you simply refuse and never turn to what God has called you to, and God will use other people. That's a very sad thing because in refusing God, you're in sin. And what is there for you in sin? Sin keeps you away from God. After life, you still can't be in the presence of God because you died in sin. And if you died in sin, then the only place for you is not paradise, is not a place on the new earth when God creates the new earth. What's left? Hell? Ouch. You're a Christian, you believed. You just refused to do what God called you to do. I think that that might be a case for hell. I don't know. I'm not saying, oh, you're a nasty person and you ought to go to hell. No, I'm saying you're simply making yourself God by refusing to do what God called you to do. You're saying, I will make the decisions in my life, and I am important enough to make the decisions in my life, and I'm going to protect myself from whatever that call is or whatever. You're still putting yourself before God. You're still saying, I'm more of a God than God is. You're idolizing yourself. You are your own God. Ouch. Don't run from God. Or if you're running from God, don't run for too long. Some of the time, God not only lets you run away from God, but we will say encourages you to run away from God. Some people are called and they're not going to reach their calling without a period of running away. I am not recommending it. I'm not excusing anyone. But it was prophesied by multiple people that I would be in the wilderness for a long time. I didn't realize that would be backslidden. I didn't know what it meant. But when I came back to God, I realized that that's what those prophecies were about. That they were talking about a backslidden period. So God knew it. And of course, God knew it because that's the predestined side of things. But the prophecies were that I would return in a far more powerful way. I'm going to extrapolate here a little bit. That far more powerful way is more ability to do what I'm doing right now, to express God to people. I have an understanding of where the unsaved are at, more so from that period of being in the world. I can relate more, and I am more, I have a greater urge to my call because of it. And I'll step out and do things like this if they're superior to what I might have done without that period of backsliding. But I certainly wasn't heading in this direction before. In fact, I don't know what direction I was heading in. So, we can all run. Don't. But still, are you running from God? Why would you? If you're not running from God, you have the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. One of those was peace. Run from God and you won't have peace. You might sort of feel a little bit at ease, but it won't be true peace, not peace in God. You can't have the fruits of the Spirit fully when you're running from God. You won't have proper joy. I mean, you'll be happy about things, or you might be entertained by things and have the happiness of entertainment. But it's not the joy of knowing God and having a good relationship with God and the desire to share that with the world. Has God called you to more than what you're doing now? Stop running. Are you ready to step up to what God has called you to? Are you ready to step up even if you don't know what God has called you to? But to say, God, I'm willing to do whatever right now. I will go help at my church. I will go preach because anyone can preach. You don't have to have a certificate of ministry to preach. Okay. In fact, every Christian, your duty is to preach. After all, as a disciple, we do what Christ did. And what did Christ do? Mark 1:38, he said, I came to preach. So, and preach the good news, the gospel. That's our duty. So if you don't know what your call is, go preach. It's still part of every Christian's call. Stop running. I think I'm done. I'll just have one last quick thought on running and see if I come up with anything that I haven't said already. Running is tiring. Stop running. Running might get you somewhere quicker, but if it's in the wrong place, you're just going to get worn out and wrecked for no reason. Stop running. Running is not necessarily running from God, but even running from your call. Stop running. Running is not getting your life right when there's maybe a secret sin in your life and you're running away from God because you don't want to give up that secret sin. Stop running. There is far more joy and wonder and great things when you turn to God and say, God, get the me out of my life. Get the sin out of my life. I can't do it. I don't have the strength. I have a desire for those things. So I can't overcome my own desires. Deal with it, God. Get them out of my life, please. And God will. God will get them out of your life. But you've got to be willing to let him. You've got to be in love with God enough to say, God, deal with me. Turn me into what you want me to be. I am of no use to anyone as just in my own strength. So please take over my life. That's the difference. As I say often, sin is spelt with a capital I. It's the big me in the middle, not a capital S. It's a capital I. When you put yourself before God, do, when you chase after needs or desires, or you want to have pride or an ego or whatever, that's sin. If you want that item another person has, that causes theft or covetedness. You covet things, wanting things that aren't yours. That's sin. And they're all, whatever it is. Somebody hurts a person, so that person goes out and murders them. Why did the murder occur? Because they were hurt, because they prioritized themselves. That self is sin. When you put self above God, or you prioritize self in life, even if you don't believe in God, that is sin. Okay, I'll leave it there. If this was a good message, get it out there. Post it on web pages and wherever. Give it a good rating out of 10. Put it on the comments. Otherwise, wherever you're at in your Christian walk, talk to us. We can help you advance. Okay, let's leave it there. Bless you, govern well, charis to you.